But I believe in order for you and I to build a massive, massive team, we've got to have a purpose. We've got to have a why. We've got to determine what that purpose is. We've got to determine what that why is. See, without that purpose, without that reason, without that why, you won't drive the miles. You won't talk to the people. I mean, how many of you realize on a daily basis you walk by a fortune? You walk by a fortune. How many of us know what I'm talking about? You're out, you see someone, they look at you, you look at them, immediately you go through your head, man, they look like could be a rep. Man, that's somebody I'd love to get on my team. You look away, look back at them. Man, if I only had a magazine, if I only had a DVD, let me see if I got a business card. And all of a sudden, that fortune walks right out the door and into somebody's organization but yours. See, you've got to understand that why, that purpose, that drive and desire is going to make you get uncomfortable. You know, my brother Mike and I, we loved our parents enough that when we got involved in this opportunity, our goal and our dream was to retire our parents. And we could not live without that happening. I didn't want to eat ice cream. I didn't want to go to the movies. I didn't want to go hang out with my friends. I wanted to retire my parents. And I loved them enough that I was willing to go do whatever it took and to talk to as many people as I had to make that a reality. And you can't understand until it happens how special it is to be able to make something that goes from a concept to a reality in your life. When you're able to tell your spouse that they don't need to work anymore. When you're able to have a party when you smash the alarm clock in the driveway. I mean, how many of us can't wait for those things to happen in our life? But here's what I'll share. They will not happen unless you write them down. My mentor said, Patrick, write it down. He said 99% of the population don't write their goals down. By you writing your goals, you've already separated yourself from everyone else. So that's what I did. And he said, Patrick, rate yourself. Rate yourself and grade yourself in ACN. He said 1 to 10, how are you at ACN? 10 being the best. Take a minute out. I want all of you to write down, grade yourself 1 to 10 on ACN. But I want you to think about things like prospecting. How are you at prospecting? How are you at customer gathering? How are you at presenting? How are you at enrolling representatives? How are you at training these representatives? Now, I've met people along the way, they said, man, if I only had 5 of me. If I only had 5 of me. And I used to say, really? What did you make last month? Multiply that by 5. Are you financially free? No. Then you need to move up that scale. Is everybody aware of that conversation? I said, you know, think about that. For things to get better, you've got to get better. Well, how do you move up the scale? How do I go from 4 to 5? How do I go from 5 to 6? How do I move up that scale? Well, there's a couple things that you got to bring to the table that's going to make that grow. The first thing is commitment. Commitment is one of the most powerful words in the dictionary. Now, how many of us committed to going to college? Raise your hand if you went to 4 years of college. Now, didn't those 4 years fly by? Now, for some of us, here's what I'll share with you. Go, greatest time of my life. Really? Really? You were broke. Do you remember that part? Oh, we drank all the time because you were broke. You didn't have money to go to fancy restaurants. You didn't have money to go buy the nice clothes or go on the vacations or go home shopping. So because you didn't have any money, you just drank. Would you agree with that? Those 4 years. How many of us remember studying all night? How many of us remember committing to that subject? Now, I'm not talking about the ones that barely got through. I'm talking about the ones that were looking for the 4.0, the ones that were looking to be the top of the class, the ones that wanted to be excellent. Would you agree that 4-year commitment that you and I gave, what did it give us? 4 years of more debt? 4 years of getting out into the workplace and really learning a lot of the same things we learned in high school, did we not? More math, more science, more social studies, more psychology. And when you take a look at that idea of commitment, if you brought that commitment in here, if you gave ACN 4 years of the same commitment that we give a university, where would you be? Imagine where you could be. Now, focus, here's what I find. Most people don't have the capacity to really focus on something long enough to make it work. And I think an analogy that I like to use is a magnifying glass. How many of us remember when you were a kid and the magnifying glass, and we'd go out in the backyard and we'd take that magnifying glass and we would hold it, and the sun would actually hit the magnifying glass, and if we held it steady, if we stayed focused on one area long enough, we caught a fire, did we not? Now, how many of us would agree if you took that same magnifying glass, but you just sort of moved it here and moved it there and moved it here? Would you agree nothing's going to catch fire? Nothing's going to catch fire. See, you got to have the focus. You got to come in here and you got to have focus. You know, when you talk about desire, you got to get more of it. You got to get your one up. What do you want? I'll tell you this much here. I tried on watches year after year, week after week, month after month, long before I ever had a Rolex. I was in the jewelry store so many times, they quit waiting on me. Here he comes, he don't have no money. He's gonna get the most expensive watch out. I put it on. Oh, yeah. Oh. In the little mirror, right? Take it off, put it back. I go to car dealerships. You know what my biggest joy was on Sunday? Open houses. Loved open houses. Anything over $2 million, I'd go into that open house. Walk in like a buyer. Why? It expanded my desire. It expanded what I thought was possible, because here's what I knew. Someone had already lived there. Would you agree with that statement? There were people living in those houses every single day. Why can't we live in those houses? See, I didn't know those houses existed until I started opening up my eyes and running around and looking at the houses that I wanted. I then started looking at yachts. How many of you like boats? Man, I love boats. Yacht. Fast as it go. Right? Let me look at it. Get your desire up. Go to the car dealer. Sit in the car you want. Get pictures of you sitting in the car you want. See, here's what I'll share with you is that anything you desire, you will have if you're willing to focus and put in the commitment long enough to make it work. Now, some of us are at different stages on the scale. Would you agree with that? Some of us paid a price somewhere else at another business. Some of you came to the table with some experience, so you might be higher on the scale. You know, I wasn't breaking records when I got involved in ACN. I sat in the audience so long, I quit clapping. Oh, another RVP in 10 minutes. I don't want to. Did it in 5 minutes. Great. Dying inside. Here's what I found. Because I wasn't good. I was low on the scale. I had to work on the scale. And then I had to remember that, listen, I'm building a business. I've got to become a recruiter. Any great organization out there is recruiters. IBM's recruiting people. Microsoft's recruiting people. Baseball teams recruit people. Football teams recruit people. We've got to recruit people. Could you imagine owning a sports team and not recruiting new talent? Could you imagine your third baseman is 45, 50 years old? I mean, would you agree? You're getting beat every year. You got to go out and get the new talent. So you got to build a list. Build a massive list. If you're taking notes, write this down. Build a massive list. Add to the list daily, weekly. I have a hardback book that I literally wrote everybody's names down and continue to put names in there and continues to put names in there, because not everybody's going to get involved right away. The timing isn't right all the time for some people. Then you want to schedule a home meeting, a private business reception, and you've got to schedule multiple PBRs. Not everybody's going to make the first one. Would you agree with that statement? You got to schedule a couple of them. You know, don't be afraid. If you're standing here in your first 30, 60, 90 days, you got to launch your business. You've got to pack your living room. If I go through the list of all the top performers in my organization, they had one thing in common: a big home meeting. Now, you got to learn a script. Now, how many of us would agree we all want to make $1 million doing ACN, do we not? For starters. Now, there's some of you that's a good starting point, yes or no? Here's what I'll share with you. You got to learn a script. You know who I look at? Brad Pitt. He learns his script, does he not? Now, if I want to make Brad Pitt money, what do I got to do? Read the script. Say it the way they wrote it. Do it the way they tell you. Now, here's what I found is when you're piquing interest, you got to be new. You got to be new. Do not try to present or answer questions. You know, I was in this business, and there I was struggling and struggling and struggling, and there was this guy that came into ACN, and he had more guests at the Saturday training than anyone else. And he was like very casual about things, and I was like, how are you getting all these results? And I watched him, and he was hitting position after position. He was in momentum, and he wasn't working harder than me. Matter of fact, I was working harder than him. And I said, would you tell me please, what is it you're doing? He said, I can't tell you. He said, you're not on my team. I don't benefit from you. Pat, I just don't tell my secrets to anyone. All right, so I friended him up. You know how you friend somebody up? Spend time with them, open the door for them, took him to lunch, went out. I used to pay for his lunch when he would go out to eat. Like I'd say, I'll pay for his lunch. Because I wanted him to tell me. And finally one day he said, you know what, Patrick? I can just tell that you're not going to leave me alone. But if I tell you, you can never, ever tell anybody. And he told me what he did. And when he told me what he did, my organization blew up. I mean, I'm talking about record-breaking numbers. And people used to come up and go, what are you doing? I can't tell you. Because I told him I wouldn't tell anyone. So you just want to make sure that, you continue to build your list. What? Oh, you want me to tell you? I can't. Here's what he said. Curiosity, Patrick. Curiosity. Don't tell them anything. He said it's curiosity. What's going to get them off the couch? What's going to get them to put the remote down is curiosity. He said, here's the reality. You told them the movie and they don't need to go. You answered the questions, you explained the opportunity, you told them what they were going to do. They made their decision before they hung up the phone. Of course they're not leaving their house. Of course they're not going out. They've got other things to do at 7:30 on Wednesday night. But if you tell them nothing, Patrick, if you tell them nothing, the curiosity will kill them. And you'll get better results. Guess what I started doing? Using that tip and technique to make my business explode. When I'd call people and I'd go, what is it? It's about meeting an expert. Why? Because I always worked with an expert. You have to work with an expert. Get in the stands with the fans. Don't make it about you, make it about someone else. And if you make it about someone else, then you can relate to them. So when they go, what is it? It's about making money. Well, what is it? If I knew, I would be making it. But I'm fortunate enough to have someone like Simon Abood coming over to my house. He's having massive success in this opportunity. He's going to explain to me and a hand-selected group of people about what he's doing in our marketplace. Can I put you down as coming? What do we got to do? Well, we got to be over at my house at 7:30. Well, what's it going to cost? About 45 minutes. Well, what do we really got to do? Be at the house at 7:30. See, some people are slow. You just got to keep saying it. I got another call coming in. Can I put you down or not? I got another call. See, here's what I'll share with you. The less you say, the more you'll make. And that's where, as a new person, we just have a problem getting in the stands with the fans. You will be the expert. Be new. Have some excitement. Have some urgency. Here's what I'll share with you. Excitement moves people to action. Yes or no? See, I noticed that when I was a kid. How many of you have ever been downstairs watching television, laughing and laughing at night, watching something funny, and someone that was in bed walks downstairs to see what's going on? Now, how ridiculous is that if you think about it? They were in their comfortable bed after a long day of life, all snuggled up, and there you are laughing. They come downstairs and go, what? What's going on? Right? How many of you ever walked into a restaurant and that table's having fun? How many of you ever go, what's going on over there? How many of us know what I'm talking about? I was at a casino. Did you ever see like people that play craps? And they're all, wow, I didn't even know how to play. I was over there, hey, this is great. What do we yell? I don't know, this excitement. I want to play the exciting game. See, here's what I'll share with you is that you got to get ready to have a big home meeting. You got to have a big home meeting. Now, we got to have a checklist. Some things that you and I need to do to make sure that that meeting is the most professional, the most on point. Really, everything that you and I need to have. Number one, is to have a sign-in sheet. People come in, name, cell phone number, get it all written down. You got to have a follow-up sheet for your presenter. You also want to make sure that you have simple snacks. No crazy food, don't cook, don't make anything. Everything's got to be duplicatable. You got to keep it simple. No alcohol. Alcohol gives people opinions, yes or no? If your friends can't go 45 minutes without a drink, they need a meeting. That meeting also starts with an A. They need a sponsor at that meeting too. No alcohol. Fair enough? Also, play upbeat music. Most people don't know each other when they come in, so you want to have some music before the meeting, and you want to have music after the meeting. When the meeting's over, I turn the music back on. Meeting's done. Hey, listen, guys, we're going to take a break. Thanks for coming out. Boom. Turn the music. We do not want a group question or answer. Here's why. Somebody wants to justify their no. Yes or no? They don't want to do something, they're going to justify it to everybody in the room why they don't want to do it. Turn the music up. People have a question. Good. I'm going to get a drink of water, come in the kitchen, I want to answer your question. I got some other people here that can answer your question, but talk to them on an individual basis. Turn the music up. Don't get into any group question or answer. You also want to have the room temperature cool. You want to make sure that they can see their breath when they walk in. They walk in and go, whoo. It's good. It's what you want. You want it cool, you want to keep them awake, you want to keep the upbeat music on, you're ready to get started, minimize distractions, no kids, no pets. See, they distract your guests. They will not listen to the information if there's kids running around and there's pets running around. You want to minimize all of that. You also want to have the information, DVDs, magazines. These are going to be your greatest tools for the people that are interested and the people that have questions that are interested. Give them documentation. If they do not get documentation, here's what they will do. They will Google ACN. You got them all excited. They go home, they see their spouse. I've seen a great opportunity. What is it? They try to explain it. The next thing they know, they have about as much information that they need to look dumb. Yes? Their wife or their husband says, let me Google it. There's going to be good things about ACN. There's going to be bad things about ACN. Here's what I do know, is that every single thing that I say in this opportunity, if I can document in a third-party publication, they don't need to do any research. They can actually read Success from Home magazine. They can pop a DVD in. You got to arm your guests with some information, make it out to the Saturday training. Now, you want to make sure you have a DVD cued and tested. You want to make sure you know how to do it. So before you do a home meeting or you have a home meeting done for you, you want to make sure that the DVD's ready to go. Have your video phone on display. You want to make sure that you have the 1 through 10 information forms. You want to have the rep agreements, get ready to do business, and have your Saturday training flyer so you know where to send somebody when they're interested or ready to get started. You want to also have understand that you don't apologize for no-shows. There's going to be people that aren't going to make it. Totally normal. Prepare the person doing the meeting that about half the people they invite are not going to come. And it's not because they're not interested, it's because life is going to get in the way. Would you agree with that sentence? You have to manage their expectations. The worst thing to have happen is you walk into a meeting and people didn't come or not as many as expected as the host and you didn't prepare them for that, and the next thing you know, they're talking about, man, Bill's not here. I can't believe Bill didn't make it. How does that make the ones that did come feel? Would you agree? It devalues the opportunity if you talk about the no-shows. So you just want to prepare your people that, look, about 50% of everybody that says they're coming are not going to come. Now, what's your role? If you are the one having the meeting, you got to do a couple things. First thing you got to do is you got to get up in front of the room of the people that you've invited and you want to welcome them out. You want to tell them to hold their questions till the end. You want to tell them to turn their cell phones off. You want to make sure all of that is being done before you put the DVD in so that you have everybody on the same page. You also want to be excited. You're the host of the meeting. Everybody knows you. I tell people that you will make the meeting. The host will make or break their meeting. I've done many meetings where the host got up in front of the room and they were bad. They were like, well, you know, I just got in, paid $500, didn't make anything. Got this guy Pat here. Pat, just get on up there. Now, how many of us agree nobody was interested? And it's not because the opportunity wasn't amazing, it was because the host did a horrible job of building the credibility up of the person giving the presentation. Now, how many of us agree if we brought Oprah in here, we brought Oprah Winfrey, we didn't need to give her an introduction. The media has already built up her credibility. The problem is if you're working with someone else that people don't know because they're not on TV, you and I got to build their credibility up. Talk about how well they're doing. Talk about them having 100% of the information. Talk about they're an executive in the company and they're taking time away from their busy schedule to share with us this amazing opportunity. So I want you to listen very closely to the expert. Can we do this? Can we do this? Now understand also, at the end of the presentation, we got to sort the people in the room. Now, what I mean by sorting people in the room is you've got to ask them a question. At the end of the presentation, I go up to someone, the music goes on, they break the room up, I go over someone that's actually paying attention or shaking their head during the presentation, and I said, do you see an opportunity here? Yeah. Do you want to take advantage of it? Yeah. I've got some questions. Great. Now, some people don't need all their questions answered that night. Some people are ready to go. Get the actual rep agreement out, and I start showing them how to fill it out. I go, well, listen, last name, Smith, right? S-M, don't look up. I-T, right? Now, if they stop you at that point, they're going to stop you and go, well, listen, I've got some questions. Great. What are your questions? Now, I say things like, well, listen, if I answer all your questions tonight, are you going to get started tonight? They go, well, no, I'm not going to get started tonight. Good, well, then we want to make sure you come to training. Is everybody clear on that? Back to curiosity. Well, how are we going to sell these video phones? Or how do we get people out of cell phone contracts? Or how does DirecTV let you do it? Well, I can explain that to you tonight if you're going to get started tonight. Well, I'm not prepared to. Well, why don't you just come out to training on Saturday? Is everybody clear on that? Why? Curiosity. If you explain it all and answer all their questions and they're not getting started tonight, what's the value of coming to training? You got to push everything off on training. I let people know that's a great question. That's what training's about. We're going to show you how to build a team on training on Saturday. We're going to show you how to get customers on Saturday. We're going to introduce you to some success stories in your local area on Saturday. You've got a broken record. You got back to reading a script. Practicing. How many of you have ever seen a Broadway play? Now, how many of you that you went to, whether it be Broadway or even Las Vegas, they have some great events out there. How many of you have ever been to one of those plays or one of those shows or performances and you walk out of there like, that was unbelievable? I mean, it was like they moved you. It was so powerful. Do you realize that they do it twice a day, 6 days a week? The same thing, but they are phenomenal at doing the same thing. They are exceptional at doing the same thing. See, that's what you and I have to get great at. Meaning at the end of the meeting, we got to start sorting the guests. We got to start figuring out who's ready to get started, who's got some questions, and who's not interested. If they're not interested, do not convince. There's nothing worse than seeing a representative convince people. I mean, if it's so good, why are you selling it so hard? If it's so great, why are you trying to convince somebody? If they're not interested, ask for referrals. Ask for referrals. Try to make them a customer and thank them for their time. If they don't want to be a customer and they don't want to give you any referrals, ask them what color jacket they wore so that you could get it for them. Right? Put the chip down. Time to go. And the reality is that you and some of you will get that later. Right? The reality is, if you think about the concept here, the concept is very, very powerful. That is PBR after PBR after PBR after PBR after PBR after PBR. And you'll become phenomenal at it. But you've got to understand that you've got to get great at every single little component along the way. I talked about rating yourself. I talked about where you are at presenting, at preparing, at training, at coaching, at prospecting, at sorting the room. See, I think about gold. Gold doesn't lay on the surface of the ground, yes or no? Gold is deep in the ground. You got to dig for the gold. You're going to dig for the gold in our opportunity. It's not going to be laying on the ground. You got to get in there. You got to find who the gold is. You got to find where the gold is. Here's the problem. We're all miners in this room. Here's what we do in the beginning stages of the business is you talk about the dirt. You talk about the dirt. Man, Bill wasn't interested. Dirt. Sue wasn't interested. Dirt. My cousin wasn't interested. Dirt. Let's talk about the gold. Let's talk about the ones that did say yes. Let's talk about the ones that are coming on Saturday. Let's talk about the ones that did show some interest. Don't talk about the dirt. Are we going to have to shovel some dirt to find some gold? Isn't that normal? Isn't that just the way it is? They call it prospecting. Yes or no? You're going to have to go through some dirt. Here's what I'll share. I promote Saturday. Man, I am sold out to Saturday. I'm sold out to training. If I'm going to close someone, I'm going to close them on training. I let people know I can only work with trained people. All your questions are going to be answered on Saturday. You see value here, wait till you see Saturday. It's unbelievable. We're going to teach you all the techniques and the insights and all the stuff you and I need to know to have a massive organization, but it has to be shown to you at training. Now, as you do home meeting, 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 you're going to create momentum. Here's the problem. We get in this business without understanding that 90% of your paycheck is determined by what you do your first year. What you do, not what your team does. See, that's the misconception of our industry. When people get into it, you get 6 or 7 reps and all of a sudden you got the manager hat on. You got management. Imagine you started McDonald's, you were Ray Kroc, and you started the McDonald's franchise, and you had 6 stores, and all of a sudden you just became a manager. We got 6 stores. Man, I got to just make sure those 6 stores are opened on time, and those 6 stores have the fryer ready to go, and those 6 stores have the drive-up window ready to go. What did he do? Store after 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 store. You got to think like that. 90% of your check will be determined by what you do. You know what drives me crazy is when I talk to someone in their first year and they're already talking about, man, my group ain't doing it, my group ain't doing that. What are you doing? Where's your list at? Where's your PBR? How many people did you talk to? What did you do? See, here's what I'll share with you is you've got to become the example. See, I am a big believer in reading. I read, I listen to CDs. See, I've been a student of successful people since I've walked in the door of this opportunity. I've studied, I've watched, I've listened, I've learned, I've taken notes. And as you read and you look, I found a story and it was about St. Francis. And St. Francis said to his young monk, he said, I want to take you into the town, into the village, and we're going to go preaching tomorrow together. And this monk was so excited because he had St. Francis to go into the village with, and here was someone that has been his idol and his mentor over the years, studied under him. And the next day they went off into the village. And as they went off into the village, St. Francis went down the alleyways, he went down the roadways, and he was taking care of the sick. And he was taking care of the homeless. And he was taking care of the helpless. And on the way back, the young monk said, we didn't even preach today. Because we preached all day. We preached with our example. So you've got to understand, your team is looking for the example. You've got to be their example. You've got to be the person out there out recruiting your organization. You've got to be the person more excited than anybody else on your team, and you can't expect anybody to do your work for you, because there will be a day, if you are the example long enough, that 90% of your paycheck will come from your group and 10% will come from what you do. But that day isn't going to be your first year. That day is not going to be your second year. It's going to take time and it's going to take energy. But here's what I'll share with you. My mentor told me this, and I never, ever, ever doubted him for a minute. He said, Patrick, it'll be worth it. He said, it'll be worth it. And when I think about the lifestyle, when I think about what we're able to do with the SVP income in this company, see, I wrote down some goals, and I had some dream board. I had everything I've ever wanted on my dream board, from the house and the car and the clothes and the watches and the yachts. And you know what's exciting is I put down family vacation, and I talked to my mother, and I talked to my brother, I talked to my other brother, I talked to my sister, and my little niece, my little nephew, and I said, we're going to go on a family vacation. They said, good. We love vacation. I said, Uncle Pat and Uncle Mike's buying. Good, right? I said, where are we going? I said, well, I rented a 100-foot boat. They call those a yacht. It's over 100 foot. And I said, we have Tiger Woods' chef on our yacht. We're going to cook our dinners. And we've got a captain. And we've got a couple first mates. And we're going to sail to private island, to private island, to private island. And the captain got on the phone with me and he said, well, Mr. Mazer, we're going to send you an itinerary of what kind of food do you like? What kind of snacks do you like? When do you like to get up in the morning? What do you want to do? Do you like to surf and scuba dive and jet ski and snorkel? He said, it will be a vacation beyond your wildest dreams. He said, we do this for a living. And to think that that is possible by focusing and committing and being driven and building your desire up, all with a purpose that every single one of you in this room can have if you're willing to pay the price.